Glad ForceFlex Max Strength now has bags with a 2 times stronger top for over-the-top strength. Like the kind of over-the-top strength you need when, breaks your bowl of buffalo chicken dip. Glad ForceFlex Max Strength. Strong enough for all of life's garbage. 2 times stronger top versus 13-gallon ForceFlex bags.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league's about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of 5 conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sunbelt these days.
FunBelt Podcast, another episode coming at you. Jeremy, we're at episode 23. It's the Michael Jordan episode. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Sunbelt, but we are going to talk new members.
Okay.
And not to get political with you, but this expansion has been kind of crazy. We had Marshall.
Yeah.
We had to wait on a new president.
Yeah.
Of Marshall, not the U.S.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We had to wait on an athletic director at Marshall.
Uh-huh.
And now we have James Madison that is waiting on the gubernatorial election. The governor himself has to sign off on it. I tried to get John Bell Edwards of Louisiana to sign off, but he couldn't do it. I mean, Louisiana has Napoleonic Code, weird laws. I was like, surely he can do something, but no, he couldn't.
It's funny that something that has become on the national stage now of politics is somehow affecting the Sun Belt. It's like almost like the Sun Belt, the universe, it's expanding beyond sports. That maybe the Sun Belt will have some sort of gravity that has an effect on this election. What do you think, Tibbs?
You know what I'm happy about, though?
No.
When we had Keith Gill on, he said he had not been to Huntington in years. I saw that he was at the press conference, so he's been back to Huntington.
And I think that was a little bit of bull. I think that it really was him that was secretly seen hanging out in Huntington. Now, he might deny that, but I'm beginning to think maybe there was something to that rumor.
Well, we're not here to talk about Marshall or Keith Gill. We love you.
No?
No. We are here to talk royalty.
All right.
The Dukes of James Madison, and our man Shane Mettlen is here to discuss the latest James Madison. Shane, welcome in. Tell us, where do we stand on getting James Madison to the Sun Belt or even into FBS?
It's going, it's going to happen. There's just some red tape that has to be scissored away at this point. There's a lot of committees and things that have to approve the move up in division for James Madison is the main thing. In Virginia, if you're doing anything major with your athletic department, whether it's going from D3 to D2 or adding a football program or anything like that, it's got to be approved by the General Assembly of the state. And that's what JMU is waiting on right now. They're going to meet on Friday, and that should be basically the final step right there.
So if that's the final step to getting into the FBS, how long has JMU even kind of wrestled with this idea of jumping up? Has this been something long in coming, or is this something that suddenly kind of fall into your laps and you're like, yes, let's make this move?
Oh, if you ask some JMU fans, they'll say it's been coming for probably centuries. That's what it feels like to them. The Sun Belt visited JMU during the last round of expansion, the 2012, 2013, 2014 kind of round of expansion. Carl Benson, when he was commissioner, he was in Harrisonburg, met with the president and stuff. At the time, JMU just kind of said, the leadership of JMU said, we're not ready to go FBS quite yet. And they did a lot over the past decade, building up facilities, increasing the budget, things like that. If you ask a lot of their fans, they'll say that was a mistake. We should have gone 8 years ago. They're good. They're good now. They're like, okay, we finally did it. But I think there was a lot of them that were thinking, okay, it's never going to happen. We, as much as they wanted that, they were kind of, skeptical it was ever going to happen because they really turned it down the opportunity in the past.
I'm a citizen of Arkansas State University, and we had a FCS, which back then it was like Division II or whatever you called it back then, but let's call it FCS. And FCS passed where we were very successful. We won a few championships. It was a pretty good brand. We bumped our brand up to FBS, and we struggled for a while. And there was a lot of old timers, a lot of the old crew at Arkansas State that would be like, we should never have jumped up. We belonged in the FCS. We were happy in the FCS. Why did we do something like this? Is there any sort of old crew, old school guys at JMU who are opposed to this leap?
Yeah, I think that is kind of, the divide. It's the younger fan base. The school's grown so much in the last 20 years that there are just a lot more young alumni at this point than, some of the older people. And, they're kind of exerting their influence now. But yeah, there is that small, I think it's the minority, but there is a small, somewhat influential group of people that would rather stay FCS and, continue to compete for a national championship at that level and things. But at the same time, you look at what JMU's done, they're playing in the Colonial Athletic Association, and they're spending 5 or 6 times as much on athletics as everybody else in that league, other than Delaware, which, spends about half of what JMU does. And what are you doing? Why are you pumping all this money into it if that's where you want to stay? Because you either have to move up and compete with people that are on your level, or you got to cut that budget. And I just don't see them cutting back on their spending at this point once the toothpaste is out of the tube with that.
So at the end of the day, to be successful, you really got to have some money to be able to fund athletics. Like you said, they're spending so much money. The student fees are outrageously high compared to probably where the rest of us are. And yes, I'm still several years removed from college, but I have kids in college right now that I'm like, damn it, that student fee. How is that going to impact this move, or how will that impact as far as, you have almost $2,400 a semester of student fees. Where's all that money going to? They fully fund every team with full scholarships to the NCAA limit. So that's where a lot of the money goes. They spend $58 million on athletics. It doesn't all go to football. They've just had so much success in some of the women's sports and everything. That's where a lot of it's going. They've got to, whether it's manipulating the accounting or, rearranging some things. There's a lot of weird state laws in Virginia. We did kind of hit on it about, waiting until the governor's election is over because they have to get state approval. Beyond that, if you're moving up to the FBS level, they have to make it so less than 55% of the athletic budget is coming from those student fees. And they say they got it in line. They say, that's decreasing the media revenue is going to increase. They're counting on, better donations because people are going to be excited about this move, I think is a big thing. They also,
have spent this past decade building up the facilities, so they won't be pumping as much money into that aspect of it in the future. They still got to pay off the arena I'm sitting in right now, which will take a while, but they're not pumping quite as much money into the debt service and everything at this point.
So football really seems to kind of drive everything. And I mean, this program has been super successful. Last non-winning season, and I say it like that, they were 6-6 in 2013. What's been kind of the secret to the sauce of keeping James Madison atop the CAA and FCS?
They've hired good coaches. They recruit in-state pretty well. They've been recruiting at the FBS level, I would say. They go against Old Dominion and even Marshall and App State, but particularly maybe some MAC schools, things. They go against them in recruiting and hold their own. They have incredible facilities for the FCS level, which is like hits on everything we've been talking about. Like, they built it up to not stay at the FCS level. So they've just been ahead of the game as far as facilities and things like that compared to other FCS programs. And really just other than, maybe in North Dakota State and some of those type of programs, they have a fan base that cares about football and they care about JMU. I don't know if it's partially because, the mountain geography and everything. There's just this area of Virginia where you're a little bit separated from Virginia Tech and Virginia. And there's a pocket of people who, this is the hometown team. And, maybe they do root for UVA or Virginia Tech a little bit. But there's also, a good number of people who would just consider themselves JMU fans, even for a smaller school.
Shane, I have a two-part question for you.
Okay.
I hope you can juggle these balls. One, who are your chief, and I'm not just talking about football, I'm talking about the whole spectrum. Who are your chief rivals now? And once you get into the Sun Belt, who do you anticipate will be your rivals coming in?
Well, I'll start with the second part because this is a big deal. Is like, they were looking for rivals, and when it was going to be that ODU and Marshall were also joining the Sun Belt. Those are just the natural ones. ODU's in-state. They've been in the CAA together before. Marshall's a pretty short drive. Rockingham County, where we are, it borders West Virginia. It's kind of the middle of nowhere once you cross that line in West Virginia. But it's a border. It can be a border rivalry. It can be something that people get into. App State will be another one just because it's not a far drive. There's some history at the FCS, the 1AA level from, playoff games, things like that. So those are the teams I think, people are really looking forward to that make up that East Division. Going back to the first part of that question, that was the thing that part of the reason it drove JMU to look for another conference is there wasn't really huge rivalries in the CAA anymore. The CAA used to be a very Virginia-centric league, and it used to be one of the best mid-major basketball leagues in the country. So you had JMU, ODU, George Mason, and VCU when they were making Final Four runs. The CAA basketball tournament in Richmond was an event in the state. And like people from all over, different alumni bases would converge on Richmond, and it was a big party. That hasn't been the case, since a lot of those schools left the conference. JMU, they've got a big football rivalry with Richmond, but they've been kind of kicking Richmond all over the field recently. They don't play Richmond in other sports really because Richmond is in the Atlantic 10 and everything else. The in-state rivalry for CAA and other sports is William and Mary, but it's just not really a rivalry. During COVID, they went an entire calendar year without playing each other in anything, and nobody really noticed or cared. Nobody was like,
"Oh no,
I missed that." William and Mary, nobody cared. Like it's just that's one of the big things. Jeff Bourne, the JMU athletic director, has been talking about. You can go back over a year, and he's been dropping hints that they were looking for a move up and looking for a new conference. Is that we've got to get back to where we can play regional rivalries that our fans are going to care about, and they'll. Probably continue to play some non-conference basketball games with George Mason. That'll be a big thing. And they'll play, maybe they'll play Richmond as their, FCS opponent in football a lot of years. But those ODU games are going to be huge. And the Marshall games are going to be big. And the App State games are going to be big.
That's correct. Because, what the Sun Belt actually has done a good job of building rivalries, especially out east. It seems like out east is where there's a big clump now of schools that really have some genuine, I don't like to say, no, I do like to say hate for each other. And I think that's going to be really cool to see what JMU brings to that table.
By the way, though, Shane, Jeremy's just jealous because Arkansas State has no rival. He's trying
we don't have a rival.
to hype it up that Texas State's their rival. He calls them the Boob Cats.
We can't seem to get it going. No.
Yeah. So if you would like a rival, I'm sure Arkansas State and Jeremy on their behalf is, more than willing to kind of fill that void.
Red Wolves, Dukes, just hatred. Can we build that up?
Yeah, we can see what we can do. I'm curious about, the West Division. We don't know as much about here. Like, you mentioned Arkansas State looking for that rivalry. I kind of assumed maybe it would be some of the Louisiana schools, but like, who are the big rivals in the West, if there are any?
It honestly
hate each other. Yeah,
it seems like it's everybody against Louisiana Lafayette.
Everybody hates those guys right now. They've had a string of good seasons. They're very cocky about it. So, and rightfully so. They've done very well. They put serviceable basketball teams out there. They put out a great baseball team.
Great softball.
Great softball. Great football. They have a pretty ambitious athletic department. So out west, Louisiana's the king of the crop. It used to be for a while it was Troy, then Troy moved east, and now they're moving back west. And for a while it was Arkansas State. Arkansas State had several years of good times. ULM every now and then busts out a season that you just didn't see happening. This happens to be one of those years. But we're not here to talk about the Sun Belt West. We're here to talk about JMU and maybe a little bit about basketball. Is there, we're Sunbelt has in the past, or maybe in the recent past, has struggled a little bit on basketball, but there seems to be some new energy around basketball. Is JMU a basketball school or is it a football school?
It's a football school, especially right now, but I think there's a basketball school waiting to come back here. If you look back at the history of JMU, they kind of built it on basketball. This was a small school in the early 80s. They were playing Division III football in the late 70s. It was mainly a female teacher school for a long time. And they had a president a long time ago, named Ron Carrier, who wanted to build it up into what it is today. And he saw athletics as a way to do that. And, he hired some good basketball coaches. In the early 80s, JMU was kind of one of those original Cinderella teams. They went to the NCAA tournament and they beat, high major teams in the first round 3 straight years. That coach ended up going to Cal. They had some good teams in the 90s, but struggled in their conference tournament and didn't make a lot of NCAA tournaments. And then the past, 15 years or so have been not so great, but they're investing a ton of money in basketball. I'm sitting in a brand new $140 million arena right now.
Wow.
That, is one of the nicest in the country. Like really, it's kind of incredible the amount of money they've invested in that. They're paying, you guys know Mark Byington from his Sunbelt days. They, hired him away from Georgia Southern, pretty much doubled his salary to get him here. So they're investing in basketball and they're looking for that to, turn around pretty quickly and, see better days.
Well, you also we talk about football a lot. We talk about basketball. What else does JMU bring to that table? And it could be anything like, women's soccer or Arkansas State has a bowling team. I don't know if you guys knew that. Is there anything that you guys that are strong in that we should be looking out for?
Oh, well, you mentioned Louisiana softball. I think a lot of people are looking forward to maybe developing a rivalry there. JMU's coming off a Women's College World Series appearance last spring. They've been a solid softball program for a long time. And they've done that with a lot of local talent too. So that's a sport that a lot of JMU fans are pretty into right now. Women's basketball's got pretty good tradition. The men's soccer program, which sounds like the Sun Belt's going to bring back men's soccer, that's been a top 25 program for the past 3 or 4 years. So those are some sports I expect them to have some pretty good success in when they switch leagues.
So with y'all getting ready to make the jump to FBS and the Sun Belt, What concerns do you hear fans really talking about as they get ready to make these kind of double doozy changes there?
I think, they want to keep the football success going. They aren't necessarily going to enjoy it if it's, 4-6, 4-8 seasons here to make the transition. There's also, concerns about the finances to making that transition from being student fee based to being donor based, I think is a big concern, and like where that's going to come from. Cause they don't, like I mentioned before, they went from being a small school to a big school. They don't have that big fish alumni necessarily to donate millions of dollars at a time. So they look for a lot of Duke Club members to make, their little contributions based on that. Those I think are the big things. They're kind of lucking out with the timing of this. Just, if there's any luck involved with COVID happening, it's that they're going to already be over that 65 scholarship limit and already be building towards the 85 scholarships at the FBS level, because they were able to keep some of those people on for their COVID years. So they're already like 70 some scholarships this year. So that transition will go a little bit faster for them as far as just getting up to the scholarship numbers that a lot of FCS programs have to deal with when they move up.
So this is a question that Dusty usually asks, but I'm going to jump ahead of Dusty on it, and I'm going to be the one to ask the question. What kind of traditions can we look forward to seeing from JMU? Maybe something that maybe you guys do that not everybody does, or maybe only you guys do. What would be the scene if we were to come over to watch the Dukes in action?
Whoever cleans up your stadium is probably not going to like the streamers that they sneak in and toss whenever there's a touchdown score.
Yeah.
So that's one of their big things. It used to be like a big basketball thing too, but it's kind of moved to football. When there's a touchdown scored, they toss the purple and gold streamers. So that's a big one. That's kind of, probably the most noticeable thing for the fans of other programs, I would say.
Now, as a mascot, do you have a Duke?
It's a Duke dog. It's a bulldog who wears a crown, and he's pretty cool looking.
Yeah. Now, do you have a real dog?
This guy's he's in a suit.
Oh,
I think there is a bulldog around, but he's not around a lot. The Duke dog will be in a suit around a lot of games.
Okay, all right.
Do y'all have a real red wolf?
Oh yeah. We actually set them loose on opposing fans.
Yeah, we saw what happened with Coastal when they decapitated them.
That's right. No, but we talk about getting a live mascot all the time. It's always the same thing. Then we start talking about the logistics. Well, somebody will have to take care of the dog and feed it and do all this. And it's like, oh my God. It's like getting a pet at home. It's like all those things you got to think about. But no.
So what else is there to know about James Madison? Obviously, the good old streamers. I like that idea. What are the good traditions that y'all have?
That's a big one. They big on their purple. They play start wearing purple before the games, and purple rain after a victory. They love their purple.
Purple rain after a victory. That is awesome.
Yeah,
I'm loving that. You know what? You guys in Louisiana should be a little bit nervous about JMU appropriating purple, because purple's supposed to be the purview of the state of Louisiana. Am I right?
They'll just blend in with all the LSU fans at a ULM game, so it's really not a big. Y'all have a huge following, at least by purple and gold standards, in Monroe, Louisiana.
They'll blend right in. They'll be like secret agents. Oh my God!
They really will. They really will.
Well, you'll sound a lot smarter than those guys. That's what will give them away is the intelligence. So what kind of school though is JMU? You're talking like back in the day, it was a school known for churning out teachers. What is JMU today?
It's pretty all encompassing campus. They've kind of, because they've grown, they've been able to do some focus on some technology things, cyber security, things like that. I know that turned out a lot of people in those fields recently. Even some of their athletes have been kind of getting into that field. So it's that's a big one for them recently, because it's when you're growing, it's easier to add those new programs as they come along.
That's true. You can jump in head first into those new lines.
Really can, yeah.
And not have to move a mountain to make it happen.
That's what we have. We just wanted to introduce our listeners and the Sunbelt to hopefully, fingers still crossed, new member of the Sunbelt Conference, James Madison Dukes. Looking forward to it. Shane, we'll be hitting you up once it's official, getting you back on here. Well, giving you the formal welcome into the Sunbelt Conference. Unfortunately, you got to deal with Jeremy, but it's still a good welcome package. And
we're going to look for Shane on the on press row, right? He's going to be out there, right?
They got me up in the concourse level. So,
Shane, where can our listeners find more information out about you and your coverage of the Dukes?
It's the Daily News Record in Harrisonburg. You can look at it at dnronline.com.
dnronline.com. Thank you very much, Shane. We do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Glad Force Flex Max Strength now has bags with a 2-time stronger top for over-the-top strength. Like the kind of over-the-top strength you need when, breaks your bowl of buffalo chicken dip. Glad Force Flex Max Strength. Strong enough for all of life's garbage. 2-time stronger top versus 13-gallon Force Flex bags.